In 1919, Ernest Burkhart, a war veteran, reaches the county. He meets his uncle, wealthy William Hale. The era was less tolerant, and Hale inquires if Ernest fancies Indian girls. He declares his affection for all women, provided they're under 26. Hale advises him to consider the affluent local Indian women. The man heeds the advice, and at the races, encounters Molly, a native and an heiress to the land's oil riches. Ernest chauffeurs her, claiming to be an Oscar-winning actor moonlighting as a taxi driver for passion. Amidst working and flirting with Molly, he delves into Osage tribe history and commits robberies with cousin Brian, squandering the loot on gambling. His charm and determination eventually yield results. Soon, Molly invites the man to dinner. In the process, Ernest learns that the girl has diabetes. Despite the fact that the reason for his interest is her financial condition, the girl continues to communicate. While accompanying Molly to Sunday services, Ernest meets Bill Smith, the husband of her sister Minnie, whom he and his accomplices have recently robbed. Before long, Ernest proposes to Molly, and subsequently, they unite in a legally binding and sacred marriage. Their celebration, however, is marred by the deteriorating health of Minnie. Tragically, Minnie soon passes away. At her funeral, Bill, now a widower, requests Ernest to leave, as if suddenly recalling something significant. Outside, Uncle Hale confides to Ernest that Osage women tend to be vulnerable to disease and often pass away, subtly implying that their deaths could be financially beneficial for their widowers. Molly hosts a family dinner at her mother's house. She is sick and hallucinates. She sees an owl, which seems to bring ominous messages from the graveyard, indicating that her end is near. Anna, one of Molly's sisters, inebriated, gets into an altercation with Brian. Ernest intervenes, escorting Brian out to defuse the tense situation. They retreat to a barn, sharing drinks while discussing the recent murder of another affluent Indian. That evening, Brian, in a drunken state, decides to drive Anna home. A week later, the sheriff informs Molly that Anna has been found dead. Ernest accompanies his wife to identify her sister. With this being the second murder in a short span, the Osage elders convene and resolve to hire a detective for the investigation. Uncle Hale, attending the meeting, offers a cash reward for any information related to the case. The atmosphere is heavy with sorrow. In the capital, an Osage representative, sent to safeguard the tribe's interests, falls victim to Ernest and Brian. The detective assigned to the case starts probing with unsettling questions, particularly interested in the transfer of wealth and land rights between spouses, as well as Bill Smith's marriage to Rita, Molly's sister, following Minnie's death. These inquiries trouble Uncle Hale. Hale urges Ernest to resolve the situation before it escalates. Meanwhile, Ernest and Molly's family has grown, now with 2 children. Molly's health worsens, and doctors recommend a novel treatment, insulin, which is challenging to obtain. Uncle Hale discovers that Ernest is secretly involved in a car theft and insurance fraud scheme. The skilled car thief hired by Ernest and Brian is eventually apprehended by the police. Uncle Hale reprimands Ernest for this blunder by physically punishing him. Hale then assigns his nephews a new task: to intimidate a private investigator hired by the Osage. Ernest and Brian ambush the investigator at a hotel, beating him to compel his departure from the reservation. Their next scheme in their wealth accumulation involves eliminating Bill Smith, who is laying claim to a portion of the inheritance. Hale contacts a local bootlegger with connections to explosives experts, intending to target Bill Smith. As Molly's health worsens, her paranoia grows. She suspects the doctors administering her injections are deliberately harming her. She implores Ernest to take over her medical treatments. Devoted to his wife, Ernest complies. In a parallel move, Hale, as the custodian of the Osage interests, secures a life insurance policy on Molly's first husband, Henry. He is troubled by depression, anger outbursts due to his new wife's behavior, and alcoholism, engages in a public altercation over a denied bank transaction and a dispute with his wife's alleged lover. Molly's mother passes away, joining her ancestors, leaving the tribe in mourning. Meanwhile, the opportunistic non-indigenous community begins to calculate the potential inheritances arising from these tragedies. During a dinner, Hale learns of Ernest and Molly expecting their 3rd child, a development he receives with little enthusiasm. He realizes that Henry might legally claim part of her inheritance. To preempt this, Ernest hires John Ramsey, a smuggler. Amid a parade featuring Indians, Scouts, and the Ku Klux Klan, Ernest introduces Ramsey to Henry. Exploiting Henry's alcoholism, Ramsey gains his trust, eventually luring him into a fatal ambush. After the deed, Ramsey reports the successful execution in town and returns the weapon used. Ernest informs Molly of her ex-husband's death, triggering yet another panic attack in her. However, Uncle Hale is displeased with how the situation was handled. Henry's death, staged as a suicide, raises suspicion, It's improbable for someone to shoot themselves in the back of the head and then hide the weapon. This complication hinders the insurance claim process. As a precaution, Hale advises the beaten lover of Henry's wife to leave town, but he refuses. Soon after, Molly gives birth to their third child. Rita, the last of her sisters, grows increasingly concerned for her health. Molly's condition continues to deteriorate. The tension between the husbands escalates as they discuss their secretive activities. Soon after, Hale decides it's time to conclusively handle the situation. He orders Ernest to find the explosives expert to carry out a mission. Ernest, although reticent, assigns this duty to John Ramsey. That same evening, as Ernest and Molly are in bed, a violent explosion shatters their bedroom windows. Ernest rushes outside to investigate and discovers that the explosion originated from Rita's house next door. Believing Rita and her family perished, he returns to inform Molly, who has taken shelter in the basement with their children and nannies. The day following the explosion, Hale visits the scene to confirm the job's completion. The local sheriff talks to Hale, cautioning him about the excessive scale of his actions and the difficulty in concealing them. Alarmed by the series of mysterious deaths, the Osage tribe dispatches a significant delegation to Washington, D.C., seeking an investigation into these murders. Molly, despite her severe illness, accompanies Ernest on this journey. In the capital, they meet with President Coolidge, pleading for assistance, only to receive non-committal responses. Back at home, Hale and the local doctors advise Ernest to administer a special sedative to Molly along with her insulin. They all know it's a slow-acting poison, but maintain the facade of innocence. Molly, suspecting foul play, requests Ernest to personally collect her insulin from the train, unaware of his involvement in the recent crimes. She remains oblivious to the true extent of her husband's actions and their consequences. Concerned for her daughter's health due to lung issues sends her to live with relatives in a more suitable climate. Confined to her bed, she begins experiencing visions similar to those of her mother. She shares these visions with Ernest. Just then, an FBI agent sent to investigate Osage's murder rings the doorbell. He wants to talk to Molly, but Ernest says Molly isn't feeling well. They arrange a meeting on Friday, after which the frightened guy goes to his uncle to inform. Agent White engages with the local Osage community, gathering information. Uncle Hale, undeterred, continues his calculated operations. His immediate goal is to claim the insurance payout for Henry's death, but the insurance company, acting cautiously, directs him to their main office. The FBI's presence in the town becomes increasingly. A key point of their interest is the conspicuous absence of any autopsy documents related to Anna's death. Agent White personally pays a visit to Uncle Hale, much to the latter's displeasure. The heightened scrutiny from federal authorities is unsettling for Hale. After the agents depart, he hastily arranges a meeting with an executor to orchestrate a bank robbery. However, this is a trap. At the exit, a police squad is waiting for the gang. Uncle Hale meets Ernest, assuring him of superior legal support in case of arrest. He also urges Ernest to sign a document concerning inheritance rights transfer. Simultaneously, FBI agents gather at night in a field, reviewing their investigation. They have found a witness to Anna's murder and apprehended criminals involved in exploiting the Osage's finances. Their meeting is suddenly disrupted by a fire. In a peculiar turn of events, Hale's farm, which he had recently insured for a significant amount, is ablaze. Ernest solemnly observes the fiery glow through the window while drowning his conscience in alcohol. The day after, federal agents arrive, unfazed by his guise of a devoted husband to his ill wife, and take him into custody. Ernest endures a blend of psychological and physical coercion, including sleep deprivation tactics. He denies wrongdoing, but detained associates' confessions implicating him weaken his innocence claims. The FBI allows Ernest to talk to one of them in private in order to finally persuade him to cooperate. Tom White then taps into Ernest's familial emotions, leading to Ernest ultimately betraying Ramsey and the rest. The federal agents ensure Molly's safety, who had been visited by Hale in a semi-conscious state. Molly, unsure if it was reality or a hallucination, is subsequently taken to a hospital. There, she begins to recover after undergoing detoxification. Hale makes his way to the sheriff's office to turn himself in. Hale strategizes his defense as the prosecutor methodically interviews the other involved parties. The trial soon commences, with Ernest emerging as the prosecution's key witness. In a strategic move, Hale's attorney requests a private meeting with Ernest, citing that he represents Ernest as well. After Ernest consents, the court session is adjourned. Federal agents arrange a meeting between Ernest and his wife, followed by Ernest meeting his lawyer and influential figures at a bar, highlighting complex community ties in Uncle Hale's case. Persuaded by his lawyer, Ernest changes his testimony to alleged torture and coercion, hoping for family support and potential release. He retracts his original statements, leading to his arrest. In a tragic twist, Agent White informs Ernest of his youngest daughter's death, possibly due to the poison given to Molly. Ernest, allowed to attend the funeral, decides to testify truthfully again, hoping to stay with his family. Ernest discloses a series of crimes, including the revelation that his relationship with Molly was orchestrated on his uncle's advice. After the hearing, he converses with Molly, inquiring about their children but never confessing his role in her poisoning. Realizing he's lying, Molly silently leaves. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more.